Your brain is getting older every day, but you can stop it. Not with magic, not with shortcuts, but with simple daily habits. In this video, you will learn 16 powerful habits that help keep your brain young, sharp, and alive. Listen carefully. Small changes can create a big difference. 16 powerful habits to keep your brain young. Habit 1. Keep learning something new. Your brain was not designed to stop growing. It was designed to adapt, to explore, and to learn for as long as you live. Many people believe that learning belongs only to childhood or school years. They think that once education ends, learning should end too. This belief slowly weakens the brain. When the brain stops learning, it becomes passive. And when it becomes passive, it begins to age faster. Keeping your brain young does not require complex systems or expensive tools. It begins with one simple habit: continuing to learn something new. Learning something new does not mean studying difficult subjects or memorizing large amounts of information. It means giving your brain a reason to stay active. When you learn, your brain creates new neural connections. These connections help improve memory, attention, and mental flexibility. Even small learning experiences can protect your brain from decline. A new word, a new idea, a new way of thinking. All of these act as exercise for the mind. Many people feel afraid of learning because they associate it with pressure, exams, or failure. But learning does not need to feel stressful. In fact, the best learning often feels calm and natural. When you learn through listening, reading, or simple observation, your brain absorbs information gently. This type of learning is especially powerful for long-term brain health. It allows the mind to stay open instead of defensive. Learning also brings emotional benefits. When you learn something new, you experience progress. That feeling of progress gives your brain positive feedback. It tells your mind that growth is still possible. This protects you from mental stagnation and boredom. A brain that feels useful and active stays younger than one that feels stuck in routine. Language learning is one of the strongest forms of brain training. When you learn English, your brain works in multiple ways at the same time. It processes sounds, meanings, memory, and emotion together. This creates strong mental activity. English listening practice, in particular, is gentle but powerful. It allows your brain to learn without pressure. You do not need to respond or perform. You simply listen and allow understanding to grow. At first, learning may feel slow. New information may feel confusing. This is normal. Confusion is not a sign of failure. It is a sign that your brain is working. When the brain feels slightly uncomfortable, it is adapting. Over time, what once felt difficult becomes familiar. This process keeps your brain flexible and alive. Learning something new also changes how you see yourself. When you continue learning, you send a message to your mind: I am still capable of growth. This belief is powerful. It affects confidence, motivation, and mental health. People who keep learning often feel more engaged with life. They feel connected to the world around them. Their brains stay curious instead of closed. You do not need to learn many things at once. One new habit is enough. One new subject, one new skill. What matters most is consistency. Learning a little every day is more effective than learning a lot once in a while. The brain responds best to regular stimulation. Small daily learning protects the brain more than occasional intense effort. Learning also teaches patience. Not everything is understood immediately. This patience strengthens emotional control and focus. It helps the brain stay calm in uncertain situations. These skills are valuable not only for learning, but for life itself. When you choose to keep learning, you choose to stay mentally alive. You choose growth over comfort. You choose curiosity over fear. This habit does not end. It grows with you. As long as you continue learning, your brain continues to adapt, strengthen, and stay young. Habit 2. Read every day. Reading is one of the most powerful and quiet habits you can build for your brain. It does not ask for speed, performance, or perfection. It only asks for attention. When you read every day, even for a short time, your brain stays active, focused, and connected. Many people think reading is only about learning information, but reading is much more than that. It is exercise for memory, imagination, and understanding. A brain that reads regularly stays flexible and young. When you read, your brain follows structure. It processes words, connects ideas, and builds meaning. This process strengthens concentration. In a world full of fast information and constant distraction, reading trains the brain to slow down. It teaches patience and focus. These skills protect the brain from mental overload and fatigue. Reading gives your brain a chance to breathe while still working. Reading also improves memory. As you follow a story or an explanation, your brain remembers characters, ideas, and details. This active remembering strengthens neural connections. Over time, your ability to recall information improves naturally. You may notice that your mind feels clearer and more organized. Thoughts become easier to follow. This is not accidental. It is the result of regular reading. Emotionally, reading has a calming effect. When you read, your attention moves away from stress and into another world or idea. This reduces mental pressure. Your brain enters a relaxed but alert state. This balance is important for brain health. Too much stress ages the brain. Reading helps reduce that stress gently without effort. Reading also increases understanding of people and life. Stories allow you to experience different perspectives. You see the world through other minds. This builds empathy and emotional intelligence. These abilities keep the brain emotionally young. A brain that understands others stays open, not rigid. It adapts instead of closing itself off. Many people say they do not have time to read. But reading does not require long hours. 5 or 10 minutes a day is enough to create change. The brain responds to consistency, not length. A small daily reading habit is more powerful than reading once a month for a long time. What matters is returning to the habit again and again. Reading in English adds an extra layer of benefit. When you read English, your brain works with language, meaning, and structure at the same time. This strengthens focus and cognitive flexibility. You do not need to understand every word. Understanding the general meaning is enough. Over time, vocabulary grows naturally. Reading becomes easier. Confidence grows quietly. It is important to choose reading materials that feel comfortable. Reading should not feel like punishment. Simple texts, graded readers, short articles, or calm stories are all good choices. The goal is not difficulty. The goal is engagement. When reading feels enjoyable, the brain stays open and curious. This keeps learning alive. Reading also supports listening and speaking skills. When you read regularly, sentence patterns become familiar. Words appear more naturally when you speak. Understanding spoken English becomes easier. Reading builds a strong foundation for overall language ability. This makes reading a powerful habit not only for the brain, but for communication as well. Over time, reading every day changes how your mind works. You may notice improved attention span. You may feel less mentally tired. You may find it easier to think deeply about one thing without distraction. These changes happen slowly, but they are real. They protect your brain in the long term. Reading also creates quiet moments in your day. These moments are important. They allow reflection. They allow the brain to reset. In a busy world, this quiet mental space keeps the brain balanced and young. When you read every day, you are not just reading words. You are training your brain to stay alive, curious, and connected. This habit supports learning, emotional health, and long-term mental strength. It does not demand effort. It rewards consistency. Habit 3. Listen carefully. Listening carefully is one of the most underestimated habits for keeping the brain young. Many people believe listening is passive, something that happens automatically. In reality, careful listening is an active mental process. When you listen with attention, your brain works hard to receive sound, understand meaning, and connect ideas. This process keeps the brain alert, flexible, and alive. A brain that listens carefully does not fade quietly. It stays engaged with the world. Most people hear sounds all day, but true listening is rare. Careful listening requires presence. It asks the brain to slow down and focus on what is happening now. In daily life, the mind often jumps between thoughts, worries, and distractions. Listening carefully pulls the brain back into the moment. This ability to stay present protects the brain from mental fatigue and stress. Present mind is a healthier mind. Listening carefully strengthens attention. When you listen deeply, your brain learns to follow ideas from beginning to end. This trains concentration. Over time, this ability spreads into other areas of life. You may find it easier to focus while reading, working, or thinking. Attention is like a muscle. The more you train it, the stronger it becomes. Listening is one of the gentlest ways to train it. Memory also improves through listening. When you listen to a story, a conversation, or an explanation, your brain remembers details, emotions, and meaning. This active memory work strengthens neural connections. Even if you do not remember everything, the brain benefits from the effort. Regular listening keeps memory pathways active and flexible, which helps slow mental aging. Listening carefully also supports emotional health. When you truly listen to someone, you understand not only their words, but their feelings. This builds empathy and emotional intelligence. These abilities help the brain stay socially connected. Social connection is essential for brain health. A brain that connects with others stays alive and responsive. Isolation, on the other hand, accelerates mental decline. English listening practice is a powerful form of careful listening. When you listen to English calmly and regularly, your brain works on sound recognition, meaning, and pattern understanding at the same time. This multi-level activity strengthens cognitive flexibility. You do not need to understand every word. Your brain learns naturally by repeated exposure. Over time, understanding increases without pressure. Listening carefully also teaches patience. Spoken language moves at its own pace. You cannot control it the way you control reading. This trains the brain to accept uncertainty and stay calm. These skills reduce anxiety and protect the brain from stress. A calm brain processes information more effectively and stays younger longer. Many people multitask while listening. They listen while scrolling, walking, or thinking about something else. While this is common, careful listening asks for something different. It asks for moments of full attention. Even short periods of focused listening can have a strong impact. 5 or 10 minutes of careful listening is enough to activate the brain deeply. Listening also improves thinking. When you listen to ideas, explanations, or stories, your brain organizes information naturally. You learn how ideas connect. This improves reasoning and understanding. Listening trains the brain to see patterns and relationships, which keeps thinking sharp. Emotionally, listening creates calm. A calm voice, a steady rhythm, and clear language help the brain relax while staying alert. This balance is ideal for mental health. Stress weakens the brain over time. Careful listening reduces that stress gently. It becomes a form of mental rest that still encourages growth. Listening carefully also changes how you speak. When you listen more, you speak more clearly. You choose better words. You understand rhythm and tone. Speaking becomes easier because the brain already knows how language flows. Listening builds a strong internal model of communication. Over time, careful listening changes how you experience life. Conversations feel richer. Learning feels easier. The mind feels less rushed. You become more aware of details, meaning, and emotion. This awareness keeps the brain alive and engaged. Listening carefully is not about effort. It is about intention. Choosing to listen fully, even for a short time, sends a message to your brain. This matters. That message strengthens focus, memory, and emotional connection. When you practice careful listening every day, your brain stays connected to the present moment, to other people, and to new ideas. This habit protects mental clarity and supports long-term brain health. A brain that listens carefully does not grow old quietly. It stays awake, curious, and alive. Habit 4. Move your body regularly. Moving your body regularly is not only about physical strength or appearance. It is one of the most important habits for keeping your brain young. The brain and the body are deeply connected. When the body moves, the brain responds. Blood flows more freely. Oxygen reaches the brain more effectively. This simple physical process supports memory, focus, and emotional balance. A brain that is supported by movement stays active and alert. Many people believe that exercise must be intense to be effective. They imagine long workouts, heavy effort, or strict routines. This belief often stops people from moving at all. In reality, the brain does not require extreme exercise. It needs regular movement. Walking, stretching, light activity, or gentle exercise is enough to stimulate the brain. What matters is consistency, not intensity. When you move your body, your brain releases chemicals that improve mood and mental clarity. These chemicals reduce stress and protect the brain from emotional overload. Stress is one of the biggest factors that accelerates brain aging. Regular movement helps the brain release tension and reset. This makes thinking clearer and emotions more balanced. Movement also strengthens memory. When blood flow increases, the brain receives more nutrients. This supports the areas responsible for learning and recall. People who move regularly often notice improved concentration and faster thinking. The brain becomes more responsive. Ideas connect more easily. This is not accidental. It is the result of physical activity supporting mental function. Moving the body also helps regulate sleep. A well-rested brain repairs itself more effectively. Sleep improves memory, emotional control, and focus. Regular movement supports deeper and more consistent sleep. This creates a positive cycle. Movement improves sleep. Sleep improves brain health. Brain health supports learning and clarity. Movement allows those emotions to pass through. This keeps the brain lighter and more flexible. Movement also improves attention. Activities like walking or stretching create rhythm. This rhythm helps the brain organize thoughts. Many people find that thinking becomes clearer while moving. Problems feel easier to solve. Ideas appear more naturally. This is because movement supports the brain's natural processing rhythm. You do not need special equipment or a perfect plan. Simple daily movement is enough. A short walk, gentle stretching, light physical activity. These small actions send a message to your brain. I am active. I am alive. That message is powerful. It keeps the brain responsive instead of passive. Movement also connects the brain to the present moment. When you move, you feel your body. You notice breath, balance, and rhythm. This awareness reduces mental distraction. The brain becomes calmer and more focused. This presence protects mental clarity and reduces stress-related aging. As you move regularly, you may notice changes in mood and thinking. You may feel more energetic, less mentally tired, more emotionally stable. These changes build slowly, but they are real. The brain responds best to regular support. Movement provides that support in a natural and sustainable way. Moving your body regularly is not a task. It is a form of care. It supports not only physical health, but mental resilience. A brain supported by movement stays sharp, balanced, and adaptable. This habit works quietly in the background, protecting your brain every day. Habit 5. Speak and communicate often. Speaking and communicating often is one of the most powerful habits for keeping the brain young. Yet it is also one of the most avoided. Many people stay silent not because they have nothing to say, but because they are afraid of saying it wrong. Fear of mistakes, fear of judgment, and fear of not being understood slowly push people into silence. Over time, this silence weakens the brain. A brain that does not express itself becomes passive. A brain that communicates regularly stays active, flexible, and alive. When you speak, your brain performs complex work. It organizes thoughts, chooses words, controls timing, and responds to others. All of this happens quickly and naturally. This process strengthens memory, attention, and mental flexibility. Speaking is not just sound coming out of your mouth. It is active brain exercise. The more you communicate, the stronger these mental pathways become. Communication also keeps the brain socially connected. Humans are social beings. The brain evolved through interaction, not isolation. When you communicate with others, your brain receives emotional feedback. Facial expressions, tone of voice, and reactions all stimulate different parts of the brain. This keeps emotional intelligence sharp and responsive. Social connection protects the brain from loneliness, which is one of the biggest risks to long-term mental health. Many people believe they must speak perfectly to communicate well. This belief is dangerous. Perfection is not required for connection. Meaning matters more than accuracy. When you focus on sharing ideas instead of avoiding mistakes, communication becomes easier. The brain relaxes. Confidence grows. Over time, fear loses its power. Speaking becomes natural again. Language communication, especially in English, is a strong form of brain training. When you speak English, your brain works across multiple areas at once. It processes vocabulary, grammar, sound, and meaning simultaneously. This strengthens cognitive flexibility. You may feel slow at first, but this slowness is part of growth. Each attempt strengthens the brain's ability to respond faster and more clearly in the future. Communication also improves listening. When you speak more, you listen more carefully. You pay attention to how others respond. You notice patterns in language. This feedback loop improves overall understanding. Speaking and listening support each other. Together, they keep the brain engaged and balanced. Emotionally, speaking releases internal pressure. Thoughts and feelings that stay inside often become heavier over time. When you communicate, you allow those thoughts to move outward. This reduces mental tension and stress. A brain that expresses itself regularly stays lighter and more stable. Communication is not only cognitive exercise. It is emotional care. Communicating does not require long conversations or deep discussions. Simple daily interactions are enough. Greeting someone, asking a question, sharing a small opinion. These moments may seem small, but they matter. They activate the brain repeatedly throughout the day. Small communication habits protect the brain more effectively than rare, intense conversations. Many people feel tired mentally because their thoughts stay trapped inside. Communication organizes thinking. When you explain something, your brain clarifies it. Confusion becomes structure. Speaking helps the brain understand itself better. This is why teaching, explaining, or discussing ideas strengthens mental clarity. Speaking also builds confidence over time. Confidence is not something you suddenly have. It grows through repeated action. Each time you speak and nothing bad happens, your brain learns that communication is safe. This reduces fear and hesitation. Over time, speaking becomes easier, smoother, and more natural. As you communicate more often, your brain stays flexible. It adapts to different people, topics, and situations. This adaptability keeps the brain young. A flexible brain resists decline better than a rigid one. Communication trains that flexibility naturally. Speaking and communicating often is not about being loud or dominant. It is about staying connected. Connected to others. Connected to ideas. Connected to yourself. A brain that communicates regularly remains engaged with life. Stays alert, responsive, and alive. Habit 6. Sleep well and rest deeply. Sleep is not a break from brain activity. It is one of the most important times for the brain to work. While the body rests, the brain repairs, organizes, and strengthens itself. Many people underestimate sleep. They see it as wasted time or something they can reduce to be more productive. Over time, this belief damages the brain. A brain that does not rest deeply cannot stay young. It becomes tired, slow, and less flexible. During deep sleep, the brain processes everything it learned during the day. Memories are organized. Important information is stored. Unnecessary information is removed. This cleaning process keeps the brain clear and efficient. Without enough sleep, this process is interrupted. The brain becomes overloaded. Focus weakens. Memory fades. Emotional balance becomes harder to maintain. Sleep also plays a powerful role in learning. When you listen, read, or speak during the day, your brain absorbs new information. But real learning happens during sleep. This is when connections are strengthened. This is why people often understand things better after a good night's sleep. The brain needs rest to grow. Learning without sleep is incomplete. Emotionally, sleep protects the brain from stress. A tired brain reacts more strongly to negative emotions. Small problems feel big. Simple tasks feel difficult. With deep rest, emotional control improves. The brain becomes calmer and more balanced. This emotional stability keeps the brain healthy and resilient. Many people struggle with sleep because the brain stays active at night. Thoughts repeat. Worries appear. Screens and noise keep the brain alert. Deep rest requires intention. Creating a calm routine before sleep helps the brain slow down. Quiet listening, gentle reading, or calm breathing prepares the mind for rest. The brain learns that it is safe to relax. Rest is not only about night sleep. Short moments of rest during the day also matter. Quiet breaks allow the brain to reset. Even a few minutes of calm breathing or silence can reduce mental fatigue. A brain that rests regularly stays sharper and more responsive. Sleep also supports language learning. When you listen to English before sleeping, the brain continues processing sounds and patterns during rest. Many learners notice improved understanding after sleeping well. This is because the brain has time to organize language naturally. Sleep turns exposure into ability. Poor sleep affects communication. Words feel harder to find. Attention decreases. Understanding becomes slower. With deep rest, speaking feels smoother. Listening feels easier. Thinking feels clearer. Sleep is the foundation of all mental skills. Rest also teaches the brain balance. Constant activity without rest creates tension. The brain needs both effort and recovery. Just like muscles, the brain grows stronger when it has time to rest after work. Ignoring rest leads to exhaustion, not progress. When you sleep well and rest deeply, your brain stays young by staying balanced. It repairs itself. It learns from experience. It releases stress. This habit works quietly, but its impact is strong. A well-rested brain is more creative, more focused, and more resilient. Choosing rest is not laziness. It is care. It is respect for how the brain works. When you protect your sleep, you protect your mind. Over time, this habit supports memory, learning, emotional health, and long-term mental strength. Habit 7. Reduce stress slowly. Stress does not arrive suddenly. It builds quietly, day after day, through small pressures, unfinished thoughts, constant noise, and the feeling of always needing to hurry. Many people do not notice stress until it becomes heavy. By then, the brain is already tired. A stressed brain ages faster than a calm one. Reducing stress is not about removing all problems from life. It is about changing how the brain responds to them. And this change must happen slowly. The brain was not designed to live in constant alert mode. When stress becomes permanent, the brain stays tense. Focus weakens. Memory becomes unreliable. Emotional reactions grow stronger. Over time, this tension damages mental flexibility. A brain under constant stress loses its ability to adapt and recover. This is why reducing stress is essential for keeping the brain young. Many people try to reduce stress quickly. They look for fast solutions, sudden changes, or complete escape. These methods rarely last. The brain resists sudden shifts. Real stress reduction happens gradually. Small adjustments teach the brain that it is safe to relax. When the brain feels safe, it begins to heal. Stress often comes from the mind's relationship with time. Worry about the future. Regret about the past. Pressure to do everything perfectly. These thoughts pull the brain away from the present moment. Reducing stress slowly means bringing the mind back to now. Simple awareness of breath, sound, or movement helps the brain return to balance. Presence is one of the strongest forms of stress reduction. Listening plays an important role here. Calm listening slows mental activity. When you listen to a steady voice or gentle sound, the brain matches that rhythm. This reduces internal noise. Over time, the brain learns to calm itself more easily. This is why listening practices are powerful tools for mental health. Stress also affects learning. A stressed brain struggles to absorb new information. Attention breaks easily. Understanding becomes shallow. When stress is reduced, learning improves naturally. The brain becomes open again. This is especially important for language learning. Calm attention allows English sounds and patterns to enter the mind more deeply. Reducing stress slowly also requires kindness toward yourself. Many people judge themselves for feeling stressed. This judgment adds more pressure. Accepting stress without resistance allows it to soften. The brain responds better to acceptance than force. When you allow yourself to slow down without guilt, the brain learns that rest is safe. Daily routines influence stress levels more than big events. Irregular sleep, constant screen use, and lack of quiet time keep the brain overstimulated. Small changes create relief. Turning off devices earlier, taking short walks, creating moments of silence. These actions may seem simple, but they signal safety to the brain. Language can increase or reduce stress. The way you speak to yourself matters. Harsh internal language keeps the brain tense. Gentle internal language relaxes it. When learning English or listening daily, choose content that feels calm and supportive. The tone of information affects the brain's emotional state. Stress reduction also improves emotional resilience. A calmer brain responds instead of reacting. Problems feel manageable. Decisions feel clearer. Emotional balance protects memory and focus. Over time, the brain becomes stronger, not because stress disappears, but because recovery improves. Reducing stress slowly builds trust between you and your mind. The brain learns that it does not need to stay tense to survive. This trust keeps the brain young. A brain that can relax can also engage deeply when needed. Balance is the key. Stress will always exist in some form. The goal is not to eliminate it, but to prevent it from controlling the mind. By reducing stress slowly and gently, you protect your brain from long-term damage. You allow clarity, curiosity, and learning to return naturally. A calm brain is not an empty brain. It is a ready brain. It listens better, learns better, lives better. Habit 8. Think in a new way. Thinking in a new way is one of the most important habits for keeping the brain young, yet it is often the most difficult. The brain loves familiarity. It prefers known paths, repeated ideas, and comfortable patterns. This preference keeps life efficient, but it can also make the brain rigid. When thinking becomes fixed, the brain stops adapting. And when adaptation stops, aging accelerates. Thinking in a new way does not mean rejecting everything you know. It means allowing space for different perspectives, questions, and possibilities. The brain grows stronger when it is challenged gently. New ways of thinking activate areas of the brain that routine thinking does not reach. When you question an old belief, solve a problem differently, or consider another person's point of view, your brain forms new connections. These connections improve flexibility, creativity, and resilience. A flexible brain stays younger than a rigid one. Many people think the same thoughts every day without noticing. The same worries, the same assumptions, the same reactions. Over time, these repeated thought patterns become automatic. The brain runs on habit instead of awareness. Thinking in a new way begins with noticing these patterns. Awareness creates choice. When you notice how you think, you gain the ability to change direction. Language learning naturally encourages new thinking. When you learn English, you encounter new sentence structures, expressions, and ways of explaining ideas. This shifts how the brain organizes meaning. You may notice that some ideas feel easier to express in English than in your native language. This is not accidental. Different languages guide thought in different ways. This mental movement keeps the brain adaptable. Thinking in a new way also means becoming comfortable with uncertainty. The brain often seeks clear answers and quick conclusions. But growth happens in uncertainty. When you allow yourself not to know everything, curiosity appears. Curiosity opens the brain. Instead of closing around fixed answers, the mind explores possibilities. This exploration keeps the brain alive and engaged. Emotion plays a role in thinking patterns. Strong emotions can lock the brain into narrow thinking. Fear, anger, and stress reduce flexibility. When emotions calm, thinking expands. This is why habits like careful listening, movement, and rest support new thinking. A calm brain can consider more options. It can see connections that stress hides. Thinking in a new way does not require big changes. Small shifts are enough. changing how you respond to a familiar situation, asking a different question, listening before reacting. These small actions retrain the brain. Over time, the mind becomes more open and less reactive. This openness protects mental health and clarity. New thinking also improves problem solving. When the brain is flexible, it can approach challenges creatively. Instead of repeating the same solutions, it tries new ones. This ability is valuable in learning, work, and relationships. A brain that can adapt stays useful and confident. Reading and listening support new thinking by exposing the brain to unfamiliar ideas. Stories, explanations, and perspectives expand mental boundaries. You do not need to agree with everything you read or hear. Exposure itself is enough. The brain learns that there is more than one way to see the world. Thinking in a new way also changes how you see yourself. Fixed thinking creates fixed identity. I am bad at languages. I am too old to learn. I always fail. These thoughts limit growth. New thinking challenges these labels. It allows identity to evolve. When you change how you think about yourself, behavior changes naturally. Over time, new thinking becomes easier. The brain learns that change is not dangerous. It becomes more curious and less defensive. This mental flexibility slows cognitive aging. It keeps the brain responsive to life instead of resistant to it. Thinking in a new way is not about constant change. It is about openness. Openness to learning. Openness to growth. Openness to different possibilities. A brain that stays open stays young. Habit 9. Practice gratitude. Practicing gratitude is one of the most gentle yet powerful habits for keeping the brain young. Many people think gratitude is only about saying thank you or feeling positive emotions. In reality, gratitude is a way of training the brain. It changes how the mind notices, processes, and remembers experiences. A brain that practices gratitude regularly becomes more balanced, resilient, and emotionally flexible. This emotional flexibility protects the brain from long-term stress and mental decline. The brain naturally pays more attention to problems than to positive experiences. This is a survival instinct. It helps humans notice danger and avoid harm. But in modern life, this instinct often works against mental health. The brain becomes overloaded with worry, comparison, and dissatisfaction. Practicing gratitude gently redirects attention. It teaches the brain to notice what is stable, supportive, and meaningful. This shift does not remove problems, but it reduces their emotional weight. When you practice gratitude, your brain activates areas linked to emotional regulation and memory. Positive experiences are stored more clearly. This strengthens emotional resilience. Over time, the brain becomes better at recovering from negative events. Instead of staying stuck in stress, it moves forward more easily. This ability to recover is essential for keeping the brain young. Gratitude also improves focus. When the brain is overwhelmed by complaints and worries, attention scatters. Gratitude creates mental clarity by narrowing attention to what matters. This calm focus supports learning, listening, and communication. A grateful mind is more present and less distracted. Emotionally, gratitude reduces stress. Stress hormones decrease when the brain focuses on appreciation instead of threat. This protects memory and concentration. Chronic stress damages the brain over time. Gratitude acts as a natural counterbalance, softening stress without forcing positivity. Practicing gratitude does not require big gestures. Small moments are enough. Appreciating a calm morning, a clear explanation, a helpful conversation. These moments train the brain to recognize value in everyday life. Over time, this habit changes emotional patterns. The brain learns to feel contentment more often. Gratitude also supports social connection. When you feel appreciation, communication becomes warmer. Relationships strengthen. The brain responds positively to social harmony. Strong social bonds protect the brain from loneliness and isolation, which accelerate mental decline. Language learning benefits from gratitude as well. When you appreciate small improvements, motivation becomes stable. You stop judging yourself harshly. The brain feels safe to learn. Gratitude creates a supportive internal environment for growth. Gratitude also changes memory patterns. The brain remembers positive experiences more easily when gratitude is practiced regularly. This does not mean ignoring difficulties. It means balancing memory. Balanced memory protects emotional health. Over time, gratitude becomes a lens through which the brain sees the world. This lens reduces emotional extremes. It encourages calm reflection instead of reactive thinking. A brain that practices gratitude regularly stays emotionally young and mentally resilient. Practicing gratitude is not about pretending everything is perfect. It is about recognizing value even when life is imperfect. This recognition keeps the brain grounded. It creates stability and emotional strength. A grateful brain is not passive. It is aware. It notices what supports life and learning. This awareness keeps the brain engaged, calm, and alive. Habit 10. Limit negative information. The brain absorbs information constantly, whether you are aware of it or not. Every sound, image, and message leaves a small mark. Over time, these marks shape how the brain thinks, feels, and responds to the world. Negative information has a stronger impact than most people realize. When the brain is exposed to too much negativity, it becomes tense, reactive, and tired. Limiting negative information is not about avoiding reality. It is about protecting the brain from overload and emotional exhaustion. The human brain evolved to notice danger. This makes negative news, conflict, and fear-based information very powerful. The brain reacts quickly to these signals. Heart rate increases. Attention narrows. Stress hormones rise. When this happens occasionally, the brain recovers. When it happens constantly, the brain stays in alert mode. Over time, this constant alertness damages focus, memory, and emotional balance. A brain that never rests in safety ages faster. Negative information often comes through screens. News headlines, social media posts, comments, and endless updates create a steady stream of emotional pressure. Even when you are not fully paying attention, the brain is still processing these signals. This background stress slowly drains mental energy. You may feel tired, distracted, or irritable without knowing why. Limiting negative information gives the brain space to recover. Limiting does not mean ignoring everything negative. It means choosing what deserves your attention. The brain has limited capacity. When it is filled with fear and conflict, there is less space for learning, creativity, and connection. By reducing unnecessary negativity, you allow the brain to focus on what supports growth. Negative information also affects thinking patterns. Constant exposure to problems without solutions trains the brain to expect danger. This creates anxiety and pessimism. Over time, the brain becomes biased toward negative interpretation. Neutral situations feel threatening. Small challenges feel overwhelming. Limiting negative input helps reset this pattern. The brain begins to see balance again. Language learning and mental growth require a calm brain. When the mind is overwhelmed, learning becomes difficult. Attention breaks easily. Memory weakens. By limiting negative information, you protect your ability to focus and absorb new ideas. This is especially important for listening and understanding English. Calm attention allows language to enter naturally. Emotional health is also affected by information quality. Negative content often triggers comparison, anger, or helplessness. These emotions keep the brain tense. Positive or neutral content, on the other hand, allows emotional regulation. Limiting negative information creates emotional space. In that space, gratitude, curiosity, and motivation can grow. Limiting negative information does not require strict rules. Small changes are enough. Reducing time spent on certain platforms. Avoiding constant news checking. Choosing content that informs without overwhelming. These adjustments teach the brain that it does not need to stay alert all the time. The brain responds well to boundaries. When you create limits, the brain relaxes. It knows when to engage and when to rest. This balance protects mental clarity. Over time, focus improves. Thoughts become more organized. Emotional reactions become less intense. Negative information often repeats the same messages. Fear, conflict, Urgency. Repetition strengthens neural pathways. By limiting exposure, you weaken those pathways. The brain becomes less reactive. This makes room for healthier thinking patterns. Choosing what to listen to and watch is a form of self-respect. It shows awareness of how the brain works. This awareness keeps the brain young. It allows learning and creativity to return naturally. A protected brain is not disconnected from reality. It is balanced. It can face challenges without becoming overwhelmed. By limiting negative information, you give your brain the chance to stay calm, flexible, and alive. Habit 11. Learn a language. Learning a language is one of the most powerful habits for keeping the brain young, active, and flexible. It is not only about communication. It is about how the brain adapts, connects, and grows. When you learn a language, your brain works in many ways at the same time. It listens, remembers, compares, and creates meaning. This complex activity strengthens mental pathways and protects the brain from decline. A brain that learns a language stays alive. Language learning challenges the brain gently but deeply. Every new word, sound, and sentence structure asks the brain to adjust. This adjustment creates new neural connections. These connections improve memory, attention, and cognitive flexibility. Unlike repetitive tasks, language learning constantly introduces variation. This variation keeps the brain engaged and curious. One of the most important benefits of learning a language is improved memory. When you remember words, phrases, and meanings, your brain trains recall. This training strengthens long-term memory. People who learn languages often notice improved ability to remember names, details, and information in daily life. The brain becomes more efficient at storing and retrieving knowledge. Learning a language also improves attention. To understand spoken or written language, the brain must focus. It must follow sound patterns, sentence flow, and context. This trains concentration. Over time, the brain becomes better at staying focused for longer periods. This improved attention supports learning in other areas as well. Emotionally, language learning builds confidence. At first, it may feel uncomfortable. New sounds feel strange. Mistakes happen often. But as understanding grows, confidence grows with it. This confidence is not only about language. It affects how you approach challenges in general. The brain learns that growth is possible through effort, not perfection. Language learning also changes how the brain processes information. Different languages express ideas in different ways. When you learn a new language, you learn new ways to think. This mental flexibility keeps the brain adaptable. A flexible brain can handle change more easily. It responds creatively instead of rigidly. Listening is a central part of language learning. When you listen to English or another language regularly, your brain becomes familiar with rhythm, tone, and structure. Understanding grows naturally through exposure. You do not need to force comprehension. The brain learns quietly through repetition and context. This gentle learning process is ideal for long-term brain health. Language learning also supports emotional connection. Through language, you connect with other cultures, stories, and perspectives. This broadens understanding and empathy. A brain that understands others stays emotionally open. Emotional openness protects mental health and reduces stress-related aging. Another powerful benefit of learning a language is delayed cognitive decline. Studies show that bilingual or multilingual individuals often experience slower mental aging. This is because their brains regularly switch between systems. This switching strengthens executive function and mental control. The brain stays sharp through use. Learning a language also creates purpose. It gives the brain a clear goal and direction. Purposeful activity keeps the brain motivated and engaged. Without purpose, the mind becomes passive. Language learning provides a reason to stay mentally active. Importantly, language learning does not require perfection. You do not need to speak fluently to benefit. Even beginner-level learning strengthens the brain. The effort itself matters. Each listening session, each sentence, each attempt contributes to mental health. Learning a language is also accessible. You can learn through listening, reading, speaking, or writing. You can learn alone or with others. This flexibility makes it sustainable. A sustainable habit protects the brain long-term. Over time, language learning becomes part of identity. You stop seeing yourself as someone who cannot learn. You become someone who is growing. This mindset supports lifelong learning and mental resilience. A brain that learns a language stays curious, flexible, and alive. It adapts instead of declining. It connects instead of isolating. Language learning is not just a skill. It is one of the strongest forms of brain care. Habit 12. Challenge your comfort zone. The comfort zone feels safe, feels familiar, predictable, and easy to manage. Inside the comfort zone, the brain does not need to work very hard. It follows routines, repeats known patterns, and avoids uncertainty. While this safety feels pleasant, staying too long in the comfort zone slowly weakens the brain. A brain that is never challenged stops growing. Challenging your comfort zone is one of the most important habits for keeping the brain young and adaptable. The brain grows through challenge, not through ease. When you try something slightly uncomfortable, the brain becomes alert, pays attention. It learns. This alertness activates areas of the brain responsible for problem-solving, decision-making, and emotional regulation. These areas stay strong when they are used. When they are ignored, they weaken over time. This is why gentle challenges protect long-term brain health. Many people misunderstand what it means to challenge the comfort zone. They imagine extreme situations or risky actions. In reality, effective challenges are small and manageable. Speaking when you usually stay silent, trying a new activity, learning a new skill, listening to unfamiliar ideas. These small challenges are enough to stimulate the brain without overwhelming it. The goal is not fear. The goal is growth. Emotionally, challenging the comfort zone builds confidence. Each time you face discomfort and survive it, your brain learns that uncertainty is not dangerous. This lesson reduces fear over time. The brain becomes more resilient. It recovers faster from stress. This emotional resilience keeps the brain young. Challenging your comfort zone also improves learning. When learning feels too easy, the brain becomes passive. When learning feels slightly difficult, the brain engages deeply. This is especially true for language learning. Speaking in English, listening without subtitles, or reading unfamiliar content may feel uncomfortable at first. But these experiences strengthen the brain. They expand ability. Discomfort is often mistaken for failure. In reality, discomfort is a sign of progress. It means the brain is adapting. When you avoid discomfort, you avoid growth. When you approach it gently, growth follows naturally. This understanding changes how you experience challenge. Instead of resisting it, you welcome it as part of learning. The comfort zone also affects thinking patterns. Inside the comfort zone, the brain repeats familiar thoughts. Outside of it, new ideas appear. Challenging routines creates mental flexibility. This flexibility protects against rigid thinking and mental stagnation. A flexible brain stays younger than a fixed one. Language learning provides many opportunities to challenge the comfort zone safely. Trying new words, speaking with new people, listening to faster speech. These challenges strengthen attention, memory, and confidence. They also teach patience. Growth takes time. The brain learns to stay engaged even when understanding is incomplete. Challenging the comfort zone also strengthens decision-making. Each challenge requires a choice. This choice activates executive functions in the brain. Over time, decision-making becomes easier. The brain learns to handle uncertainty without panic. This ability supports mental health and clarity. Importantly, challenging the comfort zone should be balanced with rest. Too much challenge creates stress. Too little creates stagnation. The brain thrives in balance. Gentle, regular challenges followed by recovery keep the brain healthy and strong. As you challenge your comfort zone consistently, you may notice changes in how you see yourself. You begin to identify as someone who grows, someone who tries. This identity supports lifelong learning, keeps the brain open and curious. A brain that stays inside comfort grows old quietly. A brain that steps beyond it stays alive. Challenging your comfort zone is not about proving anything to others. It is about giving your brain the stimulation it needs to remain young, flexible, and engaged with life. Habit 13. Write your thoughts. Writing your thoughts is one of the most powerful yet quiet habits for keeping the brain young. Many people believe writing is only for authors, students, or professionals. In reality, writing is a form of thinking. When you write, your brain slows down and organizes itself. Thoughts that feel heavy, confusing, or overwhelming inside the mind begin to take shape on the page. This process protects the brain from mental overload and emotional fatigue. A brain that writes regularly becomes clearer, calmer, and more resilient. The brain often holds many thoughts at the same time. Plans, worries, memories, ideas, and emotions all compete for attention. When these thoughts stay only inside the mind, they create pressure. This pressure reduces focus and increases stress. Writing allows the brain to release that pressure. When thoughts move from the mind to paper, the brain feels lighter. This release protects mental clarity and emotional balance. Writing also improves memory. When you write something down, the brain processes information more deeply, connects words with meaning and emotion. This deeper processing strengthens memory pathways. Over time, you may notice that you remember things more clearly after writing them. Writing trains the brain to organize and store information effectively. Writing your thoughts also improves self-awareness. When thoughts stay unspoken, they often feel unclear. Writing forces clarity. You see what you think. You notice patterns, repeated worries, repeated beliefs. This awareness gives the brain choice. When you understand your thoughts, you can guide them instead of being controlled by them. This mental control protects the brain from emotional exhaustion. Emotionally, writing is a form of regulation. When emotions are strong, the brain reacts quickly. Writing slows this reaction, creates distance between feeling and response. This distance allows reflection. Over time, the brain becomes better at handling emotions without becoming overwhelmed. Emotional regulation is essential for long-term brain health. Writing also supports learning. When you write about what you learn, the brain organizes information. Understanding deepens. Connections strengthen. This is especially useful for language learning. Writing new words, sentences, or reflections in English helps the brain integrate language naturally. Writing does not need to be perfect. The act itself is what matters. Writing your thoughts does not require long sessions or perfect grammar. Short, simple writing is enough. A few sentences about your day, a reflection on what you learned, a description of how you feel. These small writing habits stimulate the brain regularly. Consistency matters more than quality. Writing also improves problem solving. When problems stay in the mind, they feel larger than they are. Writing breaks problems into parts. The brain can see solutions more clearly. This reduces anxiety and supports logical thinking. A brain that solves problems calmly stays younger than one that reacts emotionally. Another important benefit of writing is emotional honesty. Writing allows expression without judgment. You do not need to impress anyone. You do not need to be correct. This freedom creates psychological safety. A brain that feels safe can explore ideas more openly. This openness supports creativity and flexibility. Writing also slows time. In a fast world, writing creates pause. This pause allows the brain to rest while still engaging. It is a form of active calm. The brain processes experience instead of rushing past it. This reflective state protects mental health. Over time, writing changes how the brain thinks. Thoughts become more structured. Emotional reactions soften. Understanding deepens. Writing becomes a conversation with yourself. This internal dialogue strengthens self-trust and clarity. Writing your thoughts regularly teaches the brain that expression is healthy. Silence is no longer the only option. Confusion becomes clarity. Pressure becomes understanding. A brain that writes stays engaged with itself and with life. This habit does not require talent. It requires honesty. When you write honestly, your brain responds positively. It organizes, releases, and strengthens itself. Writing is not just a habit. It is a form of mental care that keeps the brain young, balanced, and alive. Habit 14. Stay curious. Curiosity is one of the strongest signals of a young and healthy brain. A curious brain asks questions, explores ideas, and stays open to learning. When curiosity fades, the brain slowly becomes passive. Life feels repetitive. Thinking becomes narrow. Growth slows down. Staying curious is not about knowing everything. It is about wanting to understand more. This desire keeps the brain active, flexible, and alive. The brain thrives on curiosity because curiosity creates engagement. When you are curious, your attention sharpens naturally. You want to listen. You want to observe. You want to understand. This focused attention activates learning centers in the brain. Memory improves. Understanding deepens. A curious brain does not drift aimlessly. It moves with purpose. Many people lose curiosity because they believe they already know enough. Routine replaces exploration. Familiar answers replace questions. Over time, this closes the mind. A closed mind resists change. It becomes rigid. Mental rigidity accelerates aging. Staying curious keeps the brain adaptable. It reminds the mind that learning never ends. Curiosity also protects emotional health. When the brain is curious, it replaces fear with interest. Instead of avoiding uncertainty, the brain approaches it. This reduces anxiety. Fear shrinks when curiosity grows. A curious mind asks, "Why?" instead of saying, "I can't." This shift changes emotional response patterns and supports resilience. Learning English naturally supports curiosity. New words, expressions, and meanings invite exploration. When you listen or read with curiosity instead of pressure, the brain absorbs information more easily. Curiosity removes judgment. It allows mistakes without shame. This creates a safe learning environment for the brain. Curiosity does not require big questions or deep study. Small curiosity is enough. Wondering how something works. Asking why a word is used a certain way. Exploring a new topic briefly. These small moments stimulate the brain regularly. Over time, they build a habit of engagement. Curiosity also improves problem solving. When faced with difficulty, a curious brain explores options. It looks for patterns and solutions. A non-curious brain shuts down or repeats the same response. Curiosity keeps thinking flexible and creative. This flexibility protects long-term cognitive health. Social curiosity is equally important. Being curious about other people's experiences, ideas, and emotions strengthens empathy. This social engagement keeps emotional intelligence sharp. Strong emotional intelligence supports mental well-being and protects the brain from isolation. Curiosity also slows mental aging by keeping novelty alive. Novelty stimulates dopamine, a chemical linked to motivation and learning. This chemical response encourages exploration and reinforces learning behavior. The brain feels rewarded for staying curious. Many people confuse curiosity with distraction. True curiosity is focused. It is not jumping endlessly from one thing to another. It is deep interest in understanding something, even briefly. This focused curiosity trains attention and supports learning. Staying curious also changes how you see challenges. Challenges become opportunities to learn instead of threats. This mindset reduces stress. A less stressed brain stays younger. Curiosity softens pressure and encourages patience. As you stay curious, life feels richer. Ordinary experiences become interesting. Learning feels natural. The brain stays engaged with the world. This engagement is essential for mental vitality. Curiosity is not a personality trait. It is a habit. You can choose it daily. When you choose curiosity, you choose growth. A brain that stays curious stays awake, flexible, and alive. Habit 15. Build daily habits. Building daily habits is one of the most powerful ways to keep the brain young, yet it is often misunderstood. Many people believe big change comes from big effort. They wait for motivation, inspiration, or the perfect moment. The brain, however, does not change through sudden intensity. It changes through repetition. Daily habits shape how the brain functions, how it responds to challenges, and how it grows over time. A brain supported by daily habits stays stable, flexible, and resilient. The brain loves patterns. It learns through repetition. When you repeat an action daily, the brain creates strong pathways to support it. These pathways reduce mental effort. Over time, the habit becomes automatic. This automation frees mental energy for learning, creativity, and problem-solving. A brain that relies on healthy habits does not need to struggle constantly. It works efficiently. Many people feel mentally tired not because life is too hard, but because their brains make too many decisions every day. What to do, when to do it, how to do it. Daily habits reduce this decision fatigue. When actions are predictable, the brain relaxes. This relaxation protects mental clarity and emotional balance. A calm brain stays younger than a constantly stressed one. Daily habits also provide structure. Structure gives the brain a sense of safety. When the brain knows what to expect, it feels less threatened. This reduces stress responses. Lower stress protects memory, focus, and emotional regulation. Even simple habits like listening at the same time every day or taking a short walk create this sense of stability. Learning benefits greatly from daily habits. Short, regular learning sessions are more effective than long, irregular ones. The brain absorbs information better when exposure is consistent. This is especially true for language learning. Daily English listening or reading builds familiarity naturally. The brain learns quietly in the background without pressure. Emotionally, daily habits create trust. Each time you follow through on a habit, your brain learns that you are reliable. This builds self-confidence. Confidence reduces anxiety. Reduced anxiety supports learning and mental health. A brain that trusts itself stays balanced and open. Daily habits also protect motivation. Motivation is unstable. It rises and falls. Habits do not depend on motivation. They continue even when energy is low. This consistency keeps progress alive. Over time, results appear naturally. The brain associates effort with reward, strengthening positive patterns. It is important to keep daily habits simple. Complex habits create resistance. The brain avoids difficulty when tired. Simple habits are sustainable. 5 minutes of listening, a short walk, a few lines of writing. These small actions accumulate into powerful change. The brain responds to consistency, not complexity. Daily habits also teach patience. Progress through habits is slow but steady. This pace trains emotional control. The brain learns to wait, to trust the process. This patience protects against frustration and burnout. A patient brain stays healthier longer. Habits also shape identity. When you act daily, you begin to see yourself differently. You are no longer someone who tries. You are someone who does. This identity shift strengthens confidence and commitment. The brain responds strongly to identity. When you believe you are consistent, you act consistently. Daily habits create momentum. Each habit supports the next. Listening supports learning. Learning supports confidence. Confidence supports communication. This chain reaction keeps the brain engaged. Over time, the brain becomes stronger through daily use. Importantly, missing a habit once does not destroy progress. The brain learns from patterns, not single events. What matters is returning to the habit. This flexibility prevents guilt and self-criticism. A brain that recovers quickly stays resilient. Building daily habits is not about discipline alone. It is about respect for how the brain works. When you align actions with brain biology, change becomes natural. Habits become support systems, not burdens. A brain built on daily habits does not rely on willpower. It relies on rhythm. Rhythm keeps the mind steady. Steady minds grow stronger over time. Daily habits quietly protect the brain, shaping it into something adaptable, calm, and alive. Habit 16. Believe change is possible. Belief is one of the most powerful forces in the human brain. Long before action happens, belief decides what is possible and what is not. Many people think their brains are getting older simply because time is passing. They believe decline is natural and unavoidable. This belief slowly shapes behavior, attention, and effort. When the brain believes change is not possible, it stops trying. And when it stops trying, decline accelerates. Believing change is possible is not positive thinking. It is brain training. The brain listens to what you believe. Every belief sends a message to the nervous system. When you believe growth is possible, the brain stays alert, curious, and open. When you believe change is impossible, the brain becomes passive and resistant. Over time, this difference shapes memory, learning ability, emotional health, and confidence. A brain that believes in change stays alive. Belief affects how the brain responds to difficulty. When challenges appear, a brain that believes change is possible asks, "How can I improve?" A brain that does not believe asks, "What is the point?" This difference is critical. The first response activates learning centers. The second shuts them down. Belief determines whether the brain grows or closes. Many people lose belief because of past experiences, failed attempts, slow progress, comparison with others. These experiences create mental stories. I'm not good at learning. I'm too old to change. This is just how I am. These stories feel real, but they are not facts. They are habits of thought, and habits of thought can change. Neuroscience shows that the brain remains capable of change throughout life. New connections can form, old patterns can weaken, skills can improve, memory can strengthen. This ability is called neuroplasticity. But neuroplasticity requires participation. The brain changes when it is used with intention. Belief is what allows that intention to exist. Language learning is a clear example of this. Many adults believe they cannot learn English or another language. This belief creates fear, tension, and avoidance. When belief shifts, when someone believes improvement is possible, the brain relaxes. Attention improves. Learning becomes easier. The same principle applies to all mental habits. Belief opens the door. Action walks through it. Believing change is possible does not mean expecting instant results. It means trusting the process. It means understanding that small actions, repeated daily, reshape the brain over time. This belief protects patience, prevents frustration, keeps effort alive even when progress feels slow. Emotionally, belief reduces fear. Fear often comes from the idea that effort is wasted. When you believe effort matters, fear weakens. The brain feels safer to try. This safety supports creativity, learning, and emotional balance. A safe brain grows. A fearful brain freezes. Belief also shapes identity. When you believe change is possible, you begin to see yourself as someone who grows. This identity influences daily behavior. You listen more. You practice more. You reflect more. The brain responds to identity strongly. When you believe you are capable of growth, your brain behaves accordingly. Importantly, belief does not need to be perfect. Doubt may still exist. What matters is direction. Choosing belief over resignation. Curiosity over certainty. Growth over comfort. These choices keep the brain active. Believing change is possible connects all the habits before it. Learning, reading, listening, moving, speaking, resting, reducing stress, thinking differently, gratitude, limiting negativity, language learning, challenge, writing, curiosity, daily habits. Without belief, these habits fade. With belief, they become a system of renewal. Your brain is not fixed. It is responsive. It adapts to what you repeatedly show it. When you believe change is possible, you give your brain permission to stay young. If you want to keep your brain young, sharp, and alive, start by believing that change is possible. Listen every day. Learn every day. Practice these habits daily. Subscribe for calm English listening practice that supports brain health and personal growth. Save this video and return to it often. Share it with someone who needs to hear this today. Your brain is changing right now. The question is, in which direction? Choose growth. Choose belief. And start today.